Futera presents Soccer Cards and Chill.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill.
I've had a Partington. So you did it again.
All right, Mark, what's it? All right, Mark, what's it? All right, you little trick. Wait.
All right, calm down. Yeah, I've been waiting all week to say that, to be honest, mate. I've been excited by it. Yeah, I've been doing it in the mirror and everything. Yeah, all good. Mate, this is a new little setup you got behind you. This doesn't look like nice, before. Wait,
well, it makes me look smart because I own books.
Books. You got Tony Hibbert's autobiography back there?
No, I've actually got Leon Osman's autobiography. That's my intellectual capacity. I've got Leon Osman's autobiography.
Literally. So what would his autobiography be about? Like, I don't understand.
Leon Osman, what was his life? What do you mean?
Yeah, but not exactly like the most famous of footballers, is he? It's not far off the Tony Hibbert autobiography, is it?
No, but it's just.
Did you get through it all?
Life.
Did you finish it?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
No worries.
It was good.
I'm just off to buy Christian Daly's autobiography after this.
No, if you read it as a non-Evertonian, you wouldn't be intrigued by it at all. But I particularly his time under Moyes, that was quite interesting. Martinez was quite interesting. So
sign him up.
It's all right. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, a football autobiography is a football autobiography, unless you're reading one of like someone who's had a real crazy life, like Maradona's autobiography. I suppose would be good.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Tony Adams was excellent. To be fair, Tony Adams' autobiography was excellent, but no, very good.
But it was decent to flick through.
That's also, what is the statue behind you?
Oh, this statue.
Yeah. It's a bust, of a footballer, or are we going for a football theme there? Is that Andy Carroll?
Yeah, it's Andy Carroll.
It's just a stranger. He's gone. It's
the bust of Andy Carroll.
Just a classic ornament. No,
that's Andy Carroll. That's what it is from now on.
I had it when he was at West Ham. Yeah, definitely. Perfect.
The bus. Yeah, that's right. You had it when he was at West Ham, and then you gave it to me when he re-signed.
When he went to Newcastle. Yeah, this is true.
That is what that is known as now, the bust of Andy Carroll.
Right, that's going to be in every show from now on. All right, Ads. Enough small talk. What's been going on this week, mate? What's the latest?
Well, I mean, we will. So I've had a conversation with Niam Patel from the Purple Patch podcast and NP Sports Cards on Instagram. He's an investor. Yeah. We're gonna play that interview shortly on for the guys on so they can see what Niam had to say. It was it was a bit of a contrast to maybe Jamie's interview from the week before, Jamie Salt's interview, because Jamie is a pure thoroughbred collector and Niam Patel is more of an investor type guy. So for me, again, as someone who's relatively new to this industry, it's good to speak to the different kind of areas. I mean, Jamie does his own share of investing and has done quite well out of that, I think. Obviously from what he said to us, but Niam is purely coming to this from the other direction. But actually, the intriguing thing, and we'll speak about this in a minute as well, is that he has now started to become attracted to cards, and
of course,
he's kind of liking the whole cards thing now, and he's he's holding on to certain cards and not looking at them as just pure investment pieces.
That's what the hobby does, isn't it, Ads? That's what the hobby does. Do you know what I really enjoyed about last week's? Is the comments that we're getting on YouTube. I love the stuff that comes underneath. The comments from last week, it's been very nice. Everybody's been really lovely about the podcast, but a lot of the stuff as well, just sort of learning. And it was a great little story from one of the guys who sort of added to the Honus Wagner stuff that I was talking about, which was really interesting. I'm just really enjoying seeing what the sort of community are coming back with. And I know a lot of the guys that are commenting on there are really learned sort of card collectors, card traders. So it's just really interesting to see sort of how far that can go. And I'm sure after this one, we'll get some more and we'll get more comments. And obviously Niam being a trader more than a collector, I'm sure will sort of ignite a lot more sort of maybe debate about what people believe about trading cards, etc. But no, it's great to read it. I wake up every morning excited about what the next comments are going to be. So please keep them up. And as long as we can, we'll like answer every single one that we can. I know Adam goes on there and does that. So it'd be just great to sort of see what people are thinking. And it doesn't have to be about the show. Just put some comments about what you're doing in trading cards or ideas for what we can talk about the next week, etc. But it's been really, really good. Really, really good. Thank you for everybody that's done that. That's
Okay,
great.
my wife's just come in and told me I'm being so loud. I'm doing a podcast at the moment.
Yeah.
So we're excited about the bust of Andy Carroll. Okay. All right. I'll keep it down.
Adam Partington being loud. There we go.
Being told off by my wife for being loud. That's not just for the listeners watching this. That's not the first time that's happened, and it probably won't be the last time.
Nothing changes, mate. Nothing changes.
So yeah, I agree with you. Actually, the comments underneath it are brilliant. They're really insightful. I think I've got a couple of personal messages as well from guys that I've started to kind of reach out to now and have conversations with, and every one of them says the same thing, that they actually appreciate a manufacturer speaking to collectors. And I think that's great, and that's kind of something that we want to foster here at Futera, isn't it? That relationship. We've always had a good one anyway with collectors, but we want to kind of build on that. And I think that's really important in the modern era anyway. I think that the era of companies kind of being separate, these faceless corporations from their customers have gone now. So and I really like that. And also, again, for me, I'm new to this industry. I'm not making any bones about that. I don't know anything about collecting cards apart from what you've told me in my previous little bit of experience. So I'm kind of having to learn again, and it's just very valuable for me to speak to these guys that are on the other side.
As I think there's so much information and there's so many opinions all over the internet that sometimes it's really hard to sort of condense it down to understand what's right, what's wrong, what opinion matters, what don't. All opinions matter, but the idea of sort of what you want to listen to. And part of the reason to do this is to try and bring all those major voices, all the big collectors, all the people that are just getting into the industry now and started getting interested in trading cards, giving them a place where maybe we can answer some of their questions, but also bring in a lot of collectors that maybe don't have a voice, but have a following, and allow them to say sort of what their feelings are about the industry. Just because we make the cards doesn't mean that what we're doing is the correct way to do it, and we're also learning from that and just loving hearing what people are saying. And said Jamie last week, Niam this week, it's just really interesting to see what people want, and hopefully we can also put that into what we're doing as well at the same time. So
absolutely, I've
really,
got a few...
really good resource.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we're trying to do with this, isn't it? Is to be a bit of a resource and to bring those other people in and have those conversations with them. And also what we want to do, and we're going to do this in the second part of the podcast after the conversation with Niam, is we're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to live on the other side of the fence, and to work for a trading card publisher. And you'll be able to elaborate more on that than me, obviously, Mark, sure. You've been in this game now for so long. Niam actually raises some really good points in the conversation that I'm going to have with him. And before we play that for the listeners, I just want to pick up on one thing in particular with you, mate, and that's Niam talked about how, so he's actually not been in this space for that long, I was playing the combative interviewer type style at the start. We had a really good conversation. It's just a very laid back conversation. But at first, I kind of questioned him on that. I said, "Okay, what makes you kind of think that you are in a position to advise other people on who they should be investing in?" And we
calm down, Jeremy Paxman.
I know. I felt very Paxman-esque, but he did have some great answers, to be honest. I know he did have some great answers, and he actually, kind of going on this journey with the guys as well. We're all kind of learning together, so that was kind of that was cool. But one thing he spoke about was how, as somebody who came into this looking to invest in cards, he has now turned into a bit of a collector, and he's actually got cards that he kind of adores, and he doesn't really want to let them go. And that made me think about what Jamie said as well. And Jamie came at this from the other direction, as he grew up as a collector and now has turned into a bit of an investor. So where we see two different areas within the space, the guys who are investing and the guys who are collecting, I don't think it's as black and white. And I think there's a lot of crossover now. You'll get your traditionalist collectors, you'll get you guys who are just in it to make some money. That's fine. But I find that really interesting, Mark. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you're a collector and you've been a traditional collector all the way through, then you can't help but see that your collection's worth money now. Like, it's always had a monetary value. Of course it has. And that's sort of part of the reason why they're called trading cards. But there's an obvious, the media, etc., is pushing it to you that your collection is worth money. So anybody that's invested time and effort into something and has a real passion for something, and then sees suddenly there's zeros with it, that makes a big difference. So I can understand the collector then turn around and becoming the investor in some way. And I'm sure that some of their beloved cards will change hands and go into other families or other collections where they're going to be just as loved, which is really, really important. And then you come from it from the investor point of view. And because of the boom, probably those investors are quite new. You said Niam's only been in for a few months. That's probably pretty normal now for an investor into trading cards. However, as you invest in those trading cards, you become attached to certain cards. Of course you do. It's like if I found a Christian Daily 1 of 1, for instance, I'm sure that would be my favorite card in the world. And this is pretty similar to most people. Like if you said, I think Niam, you said we'd had a conversation before, and you said that he was big into his Marcus Rashford cards. That's correct? Like, so if he gets a great Marcus Rashford card,
I think it was Rashford.
Yeah, if he gets a great Marcus Rashford card, then like there's going to be stuff there sitting where he's thinking, well, do I sell it or do I keep it? I think it sort of comes back to me. Like, I collect game-worn football shirts to put into cards. I don't collect them as a collector. I collect them to cut them up to put into cards. But when a Bobby Moore one came across my desk, suddenly there's an attachment to it that's not the same, basically. So can I put a pair of scissors to it? No, I can't. And it would be the same to the fact of, can he sell those Marcus Rashford cards that he loves so much? Probably not, even if they do go up in value. Or you could look at it from the other side. Maybe he'll get a few years of enjoyment, and then when the next boom comes along, he's they're going on eBay or whatever fancy websites up for selling cards in that time as well. So yeah, I can understand it totally.
One thing he does pick up on as well is about how certain people have done incredibly well out of their collections. You know, people who were collectors and then realised that they needed some money to put their child through university or whatever it is. You know, they wanted to take their family on holiday, and they all of a sudden realised after conversations with Niam and others, I've got the ability to do that here. I can sell a couple of my cards, and we can. The example he uses, one of the guys he knows, I think, took his family to Croatia or something, and he'd always wanted to do that. Was able to do that off the back of his collection. So.
How wonderful is that, Ads? It's a bit like, I think Steve Jobs once said that you should always do something you love. Like, any job you do should be something you love. And in effect, all these people that love trading cards, love collecting, and suddenly they've made something out of it. I think it's a great story. And I think that I can understand why both are crossing over now. I know that some collectors aren't happy with trading, etc. But I can see that as this goes on, probably everybody's around about the same. Everybody will be seeing the plus points to both sides, basically.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right, let's listen to this conversation with Niam Patel then, and then me and you will pick up after, and we'll tell the listeners a little bit what it's like to live on the other side of the fence and work for a trading card company.
Really looking forward to it, mate. Let's go.
Hello there, welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill. I have another guest on today. It's Adam Partington, by the way, not the guest. That's me. My guest is Niam Patel. Niam, nice to see you, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Look, I think it's the pleasure's all mine. It's great to speak to you guys. You know, who are actually out there purchasing cards, collecting cards, investing in cards. In your case, so you run a podcast called The Purple Patch. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
What's that about?
Basically, I'm just trying to. I've been slacking on it lately, to be honest. But the goal is to just teach people a bit more about the market. There's so many nuances when getting started, and especially for football cards, soccer cards, it can be very, very overwhelming and confusing. So just sort of trying to help guide people through that from the stuff that I've picked up.
What makes you think that you're qualified to be able to guide people through this hobby then? Like, what's your background? What's your history?
Yeah, so again, that's an interesting question, because I haven't been doing this very long either. I've only been doing this for about maybe 6-7 months at this point.
Okay.
But I'd been following the basketball and baseball market for a while before that, maybe just over a year. And really the stuff I talk about is the stuff that I know that I know. So you won't really hear me talking about stickers because I don't know much about them. but especially the vintage and the older stuff. I know that they're low populations. I know that they could be really good long-term holds, but you won't really see me talking about it because I'm not educated enough. So in terms of the modern stuff, I feel like I know enough to talk about it. I think people that have been following me on Instagram for a while now can see that if they'd followed some of the picks that I made, some of the advice, they would have made some money over the summer. And I just try and stay in my lane in the sense that I do modern. I know modern. I know the big major sets. I know how the market works in a way. And the success that I've had kind of speaks for itself. And I just use that to educate people best I can.
Do you ever, because you're obviously coming at this from a purely investor space, and you know, I know that I'm relatively new to like this hobby. Again, it's my second stint with Futera. I'm back with the company. I've been back with the company about 6-7 weeks now, and I noticed there's a bit of friction between like your old school collectors, you know, the guys that are in this because they just love soccer cards, they love sports cards, and then you guys that are new to this, that are, you know, looking at this almost in the same way that people would look at traditional kind of investments. I think obviously, you know, there's evidently a place for both of these types of people. But so do you ever get any friction? Do you ever get any, you know, any comments from those guys that are in the, you know, that have been in the space historically? Are they annoyed that you're talking about this purely as an investment thing?
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. There's that friction there, and I'm not surprised. Like it makes perfect sense to me. Of course, they'd be annoyed that people are coming in, they're driving up the prices, but at the same time, the people that have been doing this a long time, the way that they build up their own PC is not by continuing to throw money at cards. It's the ones that they want to keep, they keep, and the ones that they want to flip so they can build up to a higher grail. I mean, in a sense, they're all flippers. It's just that some use it to fuel a PC. Like personally, I got into cards because I want to be, when I graduate, I want to put a deposit on a house.
Right.
That was my goal. And I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. The the only issue potentially that you have with that is that if people are looking at it purely as investments, how can you ensure that they stick around long enough that the market stays the way it is? Because if they all decide, actually, I want to go buy Tesla or Amazon stock, the whole market would suffer immensely. But what I've noticed is these people start building up their own personal collections at the same time. So as much as I consider myself an investor, I'm a Manchester United fan. I'm very heavy on Rashford. Right. I have a lot of Rashford cards. I'm very reluctant to sell them as well because I do like them.
Okay, so what you're developing a bit of an affinity. So you came into the space because you're thinking, right, okay, this is an area where you like the investment thing. You know, you fancy your chances at earning a bit of cash. Okay, fine, that's cool. But now you're actually starting to get a bit of love for your Rashford cards then because you're a United fan. That's interesting. That's interesting. Is that a common thing? Is that a common thing that happens with investors?
I actually think it is because I'm not the only one that's had things like that, because I've spoken to people on Instagram and I was like, I think that's a good set. I think it's a good time to sell him. And they're just like, I don't want to sell him. I just like the card, or especially once you get into some of the rarer stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got a Rashford camo prism. So it's just numbered to 20. And it's just a really cool card. And I also know that even if I sell it now for, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times what I paid, I really believe in the player. I really like the player. Obviously, all the stuff he's doing on and off the pitch is fantastic. And he's only 23. And I just think that could be something I just want to hold on to for a really long time and just see how his career unfolds.
Yeah, because as you're a younger guy, I think you're 20?
I'm 20, yeah.
Uni, yeah. So Rashford probably will be akin to not at the level of global fame, but you know, he has the potential to become like a Beckham of sorts for your generation. Just somebody who people hold up. Like that was probably a guy from my generation that people hold up as, you know, a player that was terrific on the pitch, that had style, had grace, also did some great work off it in terms of his charity work, and just seemed like a good guy. And I feel like that's probably the same with Rashford. So that's interesting, because I think you said something like, I feel like kind of everybody's kind of got their eye on the market, even if you're one of those guys that collects cards historically, you're still looking at the values of them. So I get that. I do think that there are collectors out there that are just in it to collect. Like, we've got guys that have collected Futera cards, for years, and have done so. And I don't know how many of those guys, especially if they are wealthy in their own lives anyway, they've got good businesses or whatever. I think there are people out there that are just in it for the love. I don't think again, I'm still relatively new to this area, so I'm not an expert, and that's why I'm talking to guys like you and Jamie Salt on the last podcast to kind of get a grip of this a little bit more. But I do feel like there are those guys out there that probably aren't really that bothered about the value of the card. I just think they kind of love collecting. What do you think, Niam, is behind this boom at the moment? So you kind of cottoned onto this about 6-7 months ago, as you said. What kind of attracted you to it, and what do you think is behind this current obsession with soccer cards and sports cards in general?
Well, like I said, I've been following the other markets for a while, and I'd bought a couple of basketball cards, bought a couple of NFL cards, but I don't really know those sports too well. It wasn't really my passion. I wasn't really watching all the games, and I kept my eye on the Messi and Ronaldo 2014 Prisms. So back in basically a year ago today, they were about £1. And by the time I looked at them again 6-7 months ago, they were about 30. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is interesting. What is happening to this space? And that's when I started getting into it. And I just so I was meant to go traveling. I took a gap year, so I was meant to go traveling, and then obviously COVID came along and
ruined everything.
No, I stayed at home, right? I didn't travel very far. But what that meant is that I had 7-8 grand saved up in my bank account, and I put within 2 weeks it was all in cards. Once I had a feeling that something was going on. In terms of what's fueling it, I think there's a bit of crossover coming in from basketball and NFL. A lot of people initially looking at soccer, football as a sort of underrated market with lots of opportunity. But I think there's more to it than that. So there's more Europeans getting into it. I think historically stickers have been the way, but I think one reason for that is just lack of product. We can't, for like the EPL Prism, you can't buy in England, which is ridiculous. The Bundesliga Chrome, people in Germany were having problems being able to buy that product. And so, I mean, obviously you're going to gravitate to stickers because that's really easy to buy. But with eBay and Facebook groups and all these kinds of things, it's making international transactions a lot easier, a lot more supply in Europe. So Europeans are getting more into cards rather than just exclusively stickers. I think there's a bit more crossover there. In terms of America, soccer's really growing now. It's becoming a very, very popular sport. And from what I can see, loads and loads of teenagers have played it growing up. So they're now going into their university years, they're now getting their first jobs, and they can't afford to spend 2 grand on a Luka Prism or 8 grand on Mahomes. But
they're basketball players, are they? Baseball players?
Mahomes is NFL quarterback.
Okay, NFL, sorry.
Luka's a NBA superstar.
Basketball. Yeah, got you.
But they're just priced out because they are ridiculously expensive. But they could buy a Pulisic for 300, maybe 400.
Do you think there's a danger with guys that maybe are not, they're not English, they don't live in Britain? They're not native to soccer, because I get there's more interest now in the in the States with regards to soccer, but I've noticed, and I spoke to Jamie about it on the last episode as well, that some Americans are now talking about soccer, advising on soccer, but then sometimes there's maybe big gaps in their knowledge. Not all the time, of course there are Americans. I'm an Evertonian. I've got friends that are American Evertonians, and they can talk as well about Everton as I can. But I do notice there's a bit of a difference there. So is there a danger? Is that kind of like what you're trying to do as someone who lives in Britain? You've grown up with soccer. You're from this country. You're just kind of, I mean, you've been immersed in it, as we all have from a young age, right? So are you kind of offering a bit of a service there, do you think, to kind of help those guys out with what you're doing?
That's really why I got started, because I would listen. I try and find content, because first of all, for football, there was maybe 2-3 guys actually making content. Like obviously Jamie's been in the space for ages, but he still doesn't really. He's obviously running his Instagram page, but he doesn't really do podcasts. He appears on stuff. He doesn't have his own and stuff like that. So the Americans that had crossed over from basketball into, they'd like, oh, Mbappe, Haaland, Sancho, Messi, Ronaldo. That was their knowledge base, and that's all they spoke about. And even then, I was listening to one podcast about how Haaland could do well in the Euros because he's with the Netherlands, and I was like, what are you talking about?
Bless them.
And it was just stuff like that, and it got really frustrating to listen to. And I thought, I can definitely do a better job, just because this is culture here, right?
Yeah,
Everyone knows football. You can't go around to your mates or whatever without talking about, oh, did you see the game yesterday or on the weekend or whatever?
I don't know if you've ever been introduced. I've been like out with my wife or whatever, and we've gone on like a double date with a friend and her fella or whatever, one of my wife's friends, fellas or whatever. And if he doesn't watch football, it's a lot harder to get the conversation going. You go like, you into football? No. All right. Okay. So I get it.
It's going to be a long night.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I cut you off mid-flow there, but I get the main point. So you were kind of like, right, there's a gap in the market almost. As somebody who has been ingrained in football from the word go, soccer from the word go, like. Yeah, you kind of feel like a bit more confident in talking about it. That's a concern for me, Niam. I listen to some of this stuff and I think, I hope that some American guys that are kind of getting soccer, they enjoy the game or whatever, they're not taking this stuff on face value. I hope they're going away and doing a bit more research and actually watching the game.
Yeah, there's historically, I've looked into why soccer hasn't done so well in America. One thing is people are talking about is it's just too long as a game, in the sense that there are no breaks. You have half time and that's it. For example, in an NFL game, there's a break every 20 seconds between plays. In an NBA game, there's no breaks, but you're always going up and down the field. In baseball, I sat at a baseball game once. Oh my God, I play cricket, right?
Yeah.
And baseball was a really long, boring game. So that tells you all you need to know.
Cricket can go on for like 3 days.
Cricket can go on for ages, right? And I found baseball long, right? So
yeah.
One thing is just that they're just not used to those kind of games where they're just watching it and they're passing around. The defenders are just passing around the back and they're just looking for, and they find it a bit boring or whatever. But the sport is definitely growing stateside, which is a good thing for the market. And the other thing I'm just trying to show is that I'm by no means a football expert. I never spent ages doing my fantasy team and stuff like that. And the people that do that are obviously a lot more qualified to talk about the space. But what I'm just trying to show is that if you're in the UK or in Europe, or you've just been following the sport for a long time, all you need is average knowledge, maybe above average knowledge, and you can do well. Like, you can make money off this stuff, and really it can make like real money. Like, actually, I've had people DM me like over summer saying, thanks for the tip on XYZ. I'm going on holiday with my family to Croatia now because of money I made through cars. My wife can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, this is amazing. Like, this is what more can you want? So, if we just go back quickly to the personal collection stuff, there's a guy on Instagram called, his @ is the P Ryan Collection. If you're not following him, you need to follow him. And he's a proper collector, and he's been doing this for, I think he's like mid 40s. So he's been doing this a really long time. And he's basically just saying that there comes a point where you just take your profit it doesn't matter how much you love the card, you take your profit because you've just made real money, like thousands, and you can do something with that money. You can put your kid through college, you can go on that holiday, you can buy that watch or that bag or whatever. But it comes a point where, yeah, the card and the collecting is amazing, and he's a purebred hobbyist, been doing this entire life. But when it comes to this point where you're talking about 4 or 5 figures, like life-changing money, really, compared to like wages and salaries, there comes a point where you just got to take the profit, and then you can do something amazing with it in terms of experiences or items or whatever it is. But the hobby and the passion and the cards can be used to fuel the wider things in your life and to look after your friends and family as well.
Yeah, I would say, at this point, I would like to interject and just say, like, I get that there are success stories out there, but like with any investment type game, values can fluctuate. I'd just say, if you listen to this and you're kind of like, right, Niam's convincing me now, I really want to take my family to Croatia. He's convinced me I'm going all in on this card, whatever. I would say, look, if you want to do that, of course, you can do that and whatever. But just I'd say just people do need to be careful as well, because like anything, that a market only has so far that it can go. Now, this brings us to the next point, Niam. Where do you think this goes? I've got a question a bit further down that I was going to ask, but I'm going to throw it in now. Me and Mark, who also works at Futera, the creative director here, we were speaking on the last podcast about the potential of a £1 million card. What would that be? $1 million card. What would the first $1 million soccer card be? Where do you think this goes? Like, where's the ceiling in your mind as an investor type guy? And what will be the first £1 million card in your opinion?
So the first one is definitely going to be one of the older cards. So like a Pele 1958, one of his sold recently for around $300,000, I think. That was a PSA 9. So I don't know if there are any PSA 10s out there. I think if there is one and that goes up on auction, it would get close to that valuation. So over the weekend, I don't know if you saw, there were those Wayne Gretzky cards that sold for $1 million. And back in September, 1:37 p.m., which is run by like Gary Vee's team, they did a data analysis between that Wayne Gretzky card and a Messi rookie card.
Okay.
Basically talking about at price points based on populations, based on desirability, why is there such a big discrepancy in value and stuff like that. So there's only 20 Messi PSA 10 rookie cards in the world, which is just insane to think about.
Yeah.
And the last one of that was $116,000. So just under $100,000 pounds.
Would you put your money on Messi being a Messi card of sorts being the first £1 million one?
I think it would probably be a Pele if it came up to market ever.
Right.
But a Messi or Ronaldo, like for some reason, Ronaldo's rookie is half the price of Messi's, which doesn't really make sense to me. But as it stands, the way the market is and the way that the market loves Messi, and with a move on the table. I mean, I've seen stuff yesterday saying PSG have told their stores to be ready for an influx of demand. So that would be surprising if he went to PSG in the January window. But with that move, I mean, that could fuel all kinds of. I mean, he makes a move, someone puts that card at auction, it'll get interesting, and I think that easily goes to 150. And at some point in the next couple of years, that 150 becomes $1 million. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if in the run up to in the run up to the World Cup. Actually, no, that's probably too early. Again, I don't know. It's really hard to say because there's basketball cards that people were buying at $50 or $60. So Luka, who is kind of like the Mbappe of basketball, he was $50-$60 and people were saying this is too much, he's going to crash. A year later he's $1,700 for his base PSA 10. So
yeah, I agree. And also, there's different factors here. I think one thing that doesn't get said enough with soccer cards, we've made the point on this podcast, but I'm going to make it again, is that soccer is the global game. Like, it's played everywhere from Cambodia to the Congo. It's just played everywhere, and I think that's kind of like a sign of the beast in a way. That's what kind of separates it from these other sports, because while basketball has a big reach, American football is growing in Europe, let's say, but these sports are not played around the world in every single country.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I don't think the World Cup is. I've seen other people mentioning the World Cup. Again, I'm not an expert on soccer cards. That's why I'm doing these podcasts again, to educate myself as head of marketing at Futera, mate. But I see people talking about the World Cup, and I think if things continue to move in the direction that they're moving in now, I don't think you might be far off. And especially if there's a change in the offering with regards to Messi. Because then there'll be more Messi Barcelona cards in production coming down the line, because he'll have gone. So
yeah, and especially his first card in what I was thinking was going to be a Man City jersey, but it could be a PSG kit now. But whatever that first card in a different kit is, that's going to be quite valuable too, because I never would have thought I would have seen Messi play for another club in my life.
No.
So I mean, and again, you talk about it being this, the football market being this kind of like sleeping beast. And I think you're right, but the biggest thing that I'm waiting to happen is for all these FIFA kids. Once they come across, I was never massively into Ultimate Team. I played a lot of career mode, or I just tried to beat my little brother.
As you do.
I tried. He plays a lot more than I do.
Does he? Oh, okay. No. You never want to lose to your brother. I don't have one, but if I had one, I'd never want to lose to him.
Yeah, it's not a fun. It's a proper competition that we have going on. But I mean, they have virtual packs. People pay real money for virtual packs to get a player. I mean, a couple of streamers. So Castro is one of the biggest ones. I don't really know much about him, but I know he's got like 1 million subscribers, and he's one of the biggest FIFA streamers. He started opening boxes looking for real cards. I mean, all you've got to do is say to these kids, stop spending money on virtual stuff so you can play slightly better in a video game. You can open up a real box, same gambling effect, and you could hit a £5,000 Haaland, right? Versus, I mean, I don't know much about the FIFA, but it's all virtual. So I just think once that transition happens, and I think it is slowly starting to happen, because people are getting really annoyed that a new FIFA comes out every year. They have to start from zero, and they're just throwing their money basically in the toilet.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to start seeing that. And when that does happen, that boom is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's a really good point. I'm not aware. I'm too old now for that type of stuff, which is tragic to say, but I think I am. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. But those guys do. They get those virtual packs. I see them. I see them on like little videos on Twitter and that. I saw Mark Goldbridge, the United Stan guy. He's a bit of a meme. I saw him getting like a Beckham one the other day or something. Really kind of incredible stuff. So yeah, I see him buzzing about it. So I think that people will probably make that transition. That's going to be really interesting to watch. What type of cards do you look for then? Not specifically talking about brands, but do you have a type of card, like is it a memorabilia card that you're into, autograph cards, anything particular that you look for or not?
I mean, it just depends on the player and the product, really. So I'll get as many rookie cards as possible for a lot of players. So thinking about older, like if they're in their late 20s, they don't really have a proper rookie card. They'll have a sticker or something. So Kane, Lukaku, Son, people like that, they don't, obviously top elite talents, but they don't have a proper rookie card because they were just too old. So for them, I'm looking at their first Prism, their first Select, their first Chrome potentially. So because I spoke about this on Instagram maybe about a month ago. The way the market will work is a Kane. So Kane has a 2014 sticker, which is his first one. And he has a 2016 Prism, which is his first Prism or first like proper card.
Yeah.
The way the market's going to work is if Tottenham win the Premier League somehow. If Mourinho does that, unbelievable scenes. But
I think he might do. I genuinely think he might.
Really scared. Today is going to be a big game to decide that. I mean, if they can beat Liverpool,
yeah. If anybody could do it, I read something the other day. The amount of points that he's accumulating now when he's been in this position.
Yeah, after 12 games, he stays in that position. I saw that. I was like, who finds these stats? But also, like, that would
I know. Who are these stats guys? But then probably people say the same thing about Union. They probably go,
true.
Who are these collector guys that have?
True.
We're all into our different things. But yeah, no, I get you. Who pulls these stats out? It's crazy, isn't it? But he's Mourinho. And also, an interesting thing, I think that Tottenham are starting to remind me a little bit of like Chelsea 2005, 2006, like around that area, which you may not remember that, mate, but they were like very, very solid, hard to beat, would get a goal and you'd be in trouble. Because as soon as they scored, you'd be in trouble because they were just so hard to beat. They've been very good off the ball. So I feel like he's getting that. He's finally getting that message into the Tottenham lads. And if they go, I think they're at Anfield tonight, aren't they? If they go to Anfield tonight and win that, then you would say, if it's tonight, anyway, I can't remember, then yeah. They're in a good position. So anyway, so the cards, So rookie cards, you're big into rookie cards, then, yeah.
Yeah, and basically the reason why for the older players you want to go for their first Prism or the first Select or whatever, which one kind of comes first, is because say Kane wins the Premier League or England win the Euros or whatever happens like that, the first card to move will be his modern Prism, because people generally, for two reasons. One, they won't be educated enough to know that he has a sticker. I didn't know that. And I've been in this space a long time. So a lot of people that wanted, I say a long time, that's completely wrong. But I've been in the space for a while at this point. So the people that are just jumping into it have only been doing it a month or 2 months. They won't know about the sticker, first of all. So they'll be chasing his Prism. And secondly, they're just very hard to find, the stickers. I've been looking. They're not easy to find, and when one pops up on market, they're probably £30 to £40 stickers at the moment. But someone will just list one at 200, and I was like, I don't want to pay 200 for it. But if that's the only one on the market, you don't really have another choice. So that modern card, that first Prism, is the one that people will instantly recognize, and they'll gravitate to that first. So what I recommend is, if you're looking for a shorter term kind of flip, you want to go more modern, you want to go for the Prism. But if you think that Kane is going to be, for example, England's highest ever goal scorer, highest Premier League goals, whatever, and he's going to go down as this legend, you want to get his sticker and get it slabbed and leave it in your cupboard, you're safe or whatever forever. It's just two different objectives, which is why, and I've trying to stay quite short term, generally, because like obviously there's a downturn in the market now, and I'm just getting bored. Like it's great having all these cards in your cupboard, but I like transacting, I like buying, I like selling, I like trying to find out what the next deal is. And if you have no money in your bank account and because you're not selling anything, it's just not as fun for me.
When you say there's a downturn now, what are you seeing a bit of a drop in value then at the moment?
Yeah, so since the Champions League final, there was a really, really big drop. So Mbappe went from about 3,000 US to he's now 600 at the moment for his Prism. That was a very big crash, but it shows the rest of the market. It's down 30-40%.
Right.
Which is quite normal. I think just because basketball's coming back, American football, basically all the markets are now intertwined, in my opinion. So people were taking all their money that they just made, they took the profits off the table, they were putting it into American football, they were putting it into Pokemon, which both had moments in October, November with, I don't know if you saw like the Logan Paul, Logic buying 200, 300 grand Charizards, right? Now people are taking their money out of American football, they're putting it back into basketball because that's starting, I think, on Christmas Day or something, starting in a couple of weeks. And I think what's going to happen is once the American football season is over, and going more into February, March time, when we're going into the interesting stage of the Champions League, when we're going towards the Euro, that's when we're going to see another kind of boom, I think. And it's just going to be people taking their money out of different sports and putting it back into football, because like I said, like right now I'm just sitting on all these cards that I'm like, there's no point selling. I don't need to sell right now.
Yeah.
Because I know in summer they're going to be worth X amount. But a lot of people now are just constantly trading and moving between sports to just try and maximize returns. And it's a lot more fun that way as well, I think, because you're always in the game. There's always stuff you can do. There's always research you can do. And I think there's a lot of people like me who love that side as much as they love certain cards. They just love that side of just doing transactions and kind of running it as a business too.
And which players do you see at the moment then having the most potential as we move forward? Are there any? I mean, I know you said you're big into your rookies and you're always kind of looking to buy up rookies. But if you were to give the listeners, 3 players that you think that maybe aren't even the obvious ones, but you think that these lads have got real potential, I'd be buying them. What would you say?
So the obvious one right now I'd say is Mbappe, just because his prices have been very stable for a long time and they're due an increase. But everyone knows Mbappe, so I'm not going to include that. I have to talk about Haaland just because the guy is a beast. Is
he not an obvious one though, Haaland? I feel like he's a bit of an obvious.
He is an obvious one, but he's also a bit more interesting, I think, just because he's Norwegian. So he's not going to do anything on an international stage. He could be, it's kind of like, is he going to end up being Messi, Ronaldo, or is he going to end up being like Lewandowski?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? One, from an international perspective, but 2, just because of almost the way he plays as well. The way he's a proper centre forward, right?
Yeah, he's incredible. He's like he looks like a robot, I think. Plays football.
Literally. Incredible. Yeah, and I agree. He's quite an obvious pick as well. But I've just been waiting for a long time. I was like, well, he'll get a goal drought soon. I'll pick him up when he gets cheaper, and it just hasn't happened. And like, he's injured at the moment, but nothing's changed on his card price wise. I think the best time to pick him up is going to be during the Euros because the attention will be elsewhere.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Do you think the Norway are qualified though? What about if they don't?
I don't think they can. I think they lost a match. And
I see. So you're saying that actually we'll see with the test of time will be even during the Euros if he's not there and his value is still going up.
I mean, it shouldn't at that point. At that point, I'd be worried if his value was going up when he's not even playing.
Why would you be worried? I don't understand. Would you not?
Because
be about that?
It's really the sport card market is all an attention game.
Yeah.
So, for example, someone like Ansu Fati, who's been out for, 6 weeks right now, and he's got another 2 months because of I think it was his meniscus he tore.
Yeah, knee orientated. Yeah.
So his Mega Cracks card went from $200 to like $80, which is normal because he's not playing and the attention isn't on him then. Similar thing can be said with Pulisic, Alphonso Davies, because they've all been injured for a while. If Haaland's not playing and still going up in value, like there isn't a reason for that to be happening, especially when there's one of the biggest sporting events, like one of the biggest football events, which is the Euros, right? You've basically got all the big teams in there, bar maybe Argentina, Brazil, Chile, whatever. You got like I say 90% of the biggest teams in the Euros anyway. I would not expect a player not playing at that time to be going up in value. And that would worry me slightly because he's not, I mean, he's only 20. Like he's not, even like Mbappe, he's won a World Cup, right? So even when he retires, he could get injured tomorrow. He's still won a World Cup. Haaland hasn't done anything yet from that side. So logically he shouldn't, because there shouldn't be any attention on him at that point. He shouldn't be going up. I could see him plateauing, but generally I'm expecting his value to fall. But I'd be worried if he was going up, because that indicates to me that there's a bit of a bubble.
Oh, right. I was going to ask again then. I was going to say, why do you keep on using I couldn't fathom why you'd be worried at that point. But I see, because it would indicate that there's a bubble. Right. Okay. Yeah. And it's not like built on anything. I get.
Yeah, exactly. Because if he's not playing, it's not that he could win the Euros or he's just scored another hat trick.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not, I mean, unless that, for example, he gets another injury now and he's out for the rest of the season, and then in the summer, potentially in the build up to the next season, he starts going up again. That is something I'd expect. But yeah, to not be playing and going up in price a lot. Having said that, it could still be the case. So for example, when the NBA came back, they had like a bubble. Like the Champions League format was just like a mini tournament.
Yeah.
That's basically what they did with the end of the basketball season. And they had like a little bubble in Disneyland, and 8 teams weren't even invited to the bubble because they couldn't qualify for the playoffs in the next competition either. So they were just like, there's no point you playing, stay at home. So at that time, there were still players who weren't playing going up in value. Right. That was because, I mean, the other caveat to it, and again, this is where it gets kind of confusing. The players that were playing were going up in value because they were playing well. And then it just became actually, there was a boom in general, a lot of people getting into the market, but it then became relative. So if Haaland starts going up, it'd be like, well, Mbappe's this much. Haaland shouldn't be 5 times less, for example. He should be maybe half the price, in which case people are thinking, well, he's underpriced then. And that's when you start getting players that aren't playing going up in value. Okay. And I think that's a lot what happens on the vintage side. I'm not entirely sure, but if Pele now is 300 grand, where's Maradona? Do you know what I mean? Where's Shearer? That's the kind of things that play into those kind of markets as well a little bit.
How important to you is because at Futera we've always been historically quite big on this. We number our cars. We make it very clear how many there are in circulation, and we haven't historically done gigantic runs of cards. So how important is that to you for an investor? How important is it as well? We provide a lot of information as to the details on the card when it was printed. We try and provide as much information on the card as possible. How important is it to you that like different where whoever the publisher is, the manufacturer is that's producing the card, that they are doing those things as an investor?
I think it's important because you just need to know what you're getting yourself into. The issue with base cards is that generally they're not numbered, so you don't really know how many are in circulation. That's where like PSA pop reports become useful.
Yeah.
I mean, having said that though, the base cards are what drive the market. So again, when I'm looking at basketball cards, just because I think the reason I keep bringing it up is I keep an eye on it just because I think it's probably 2 years ahead, a year to 2 where the football market should be.
Right.
But relative to the base cards, because the base cards are the cheapest point of entry, the rarer, the silvers and the numbered and all the rarer stuff generally are slightly underpriced based on the base cards. So, for example, my strategy then is to have a mix of base and some of the rarer stuff, because the base is very easy to shift because it's the cheapest of whatever. You want a Harry Kane card, the cheapest one you can afford is the base, which is right now, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 quid. But even at 100, that's cheap if his silver's 500 or 1,000, right? And it's a way to always stay liquid. So the print runs and stuff like that are important. But just as important, I think, from an investor standpoint, is having a mix of base and some of the rarer stuff. So you can always be liquid, you can always be moving, and it's so easy to sell. It's a lot easier to sell a £50 card than it is a £5,000 card.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just common sense, and I think the same could be said for a lot of collectors. They might start with a base of Mbappe because that's all they can afford, and as Mbappe does better, they can then sell that and invest in a silver or a numbered or whatever. And that's where I'm talking about where the flipping side of collecting comes in.
Okay.
Because they still love the card, they still love the player, but they want to get the best one that they can of it. And and the way to do that is to just start here and just try and work your way up, basically.
That's a really good point. I think that nicely bridges that gap between you, you investor types and you as, historically, traditionally collector types. Niam, just before we wrap up, mate, it's been a very insightful conversation, by the way. Really enjoyed it. Great for me to listen to. This is quite a nice question. What would you do if you were on my side of the fence? So let's pretend, that Futera have binned me off. I'm out the door. And you're in as head of marketing. What kind of things would you do from a publisher side of this space?
So number one, for marketing, content is going to be huge, because even now, I'd say there's less than 10 people probably doing proper content on the football market. And if you can position yourself as a brand to be the football card people, where people will watch your interviews and then they'll be like, well, why don't I just buy their cards as well? Like that, it kind of crosses over and makes a lot of sense to me that way, that would work. One thing I'm thinking about a lot from a product perspective is I'm not sure how the licensing works. So I'm not sure if you can actually do this, but someone was talking to me about do you know how Bowman Chrome is?
How what, sorry?
You know Topps own Bowman.
Right.
Do you know how the Bowman brand works?
No.
So in baseball, you have Bowman. So you have Topps Chrome, which is the professional Major League Baseball cards. And then you have Bowman Chrome, which sits underneath it, which is all for your prospects. So apparently there are baseballers that go and play for minor league teams.
Yeah.
At the ages of 16, 17, 18, whatever. So people prospecting buy that card, which is Bowman. And then they hope they make it to the league and they become successful, whatever. And that card that they have when they're 16 or whatever is their proper rookie. That's what it's considered. And I think there's a space in the market right now because the talent pool in football is actually limitless, right?
Yes.
There's no sport like it.
Yes.
It's huge.
Yes.
And if there was a product out there, so one thing that I was thinking about is if they did Bowman like that for Europa League, I think that could be a bit good because lots of kids start out in Europa before moving to a bigger team in the Champions League. But imagine if you were the first to market for younger prospects. So for example, if Futera was the only company right now with an Ansu Fati auto card, that would be huge for the brand. That would be huge for the market. Everyone would be wanting that because it's the only one available. It's the same thing. Like Topps are doing a good job at the moment, I think, with these Topps Now cards, these rookie cards that they're printing, and they're just printing money. I think they're being really, really smart about it because every week now their release has got a new rookie in it, and people just want it. Like the Mukoko print run was 43K.
Yes, I know.
It's ridiculous.
It's a big print run.
Ridiculous. And they know how the market's working now. They're like, oh, these people love prospecting. They love betting on the 16, 17, 18-year-old because they look at players like Mbappe, who's only 21 and yet so accomplished.
Yeah.
Even you could say the same for Trent, who's 22, I think, maybe 23, won the Prem, won the Champions League. There's so much young elite talent out there, which you don't get in other sports. You rarely get a 21-year-old that's already won the NBA or the NFL. So if there was a underlying product out there, and I don't know how it would work because it would also depend on your definition of a rookie card. For example, Greenwood, even as a Man United fan, I didn't realize just how good he was going to be. But for the whole of last season, he played a bit in Europa, didn't get a ton of minutes. And then it was after lockdown that he started playing consistently and starting, and then he went off and he was insane. But he was in the squad for a year before that. I'm pretty sure. Ansu Fati was in the Barcelona squad for a while, for a couple of months anyway, before he got promoted to starting. So if you could make a product underneath that, which is kind of all these academy players that have just signed their first professional contract, like if you could get in there with that first card, I think that could be really, really big, especially if you could then combine that with autos.
Yes, that's very interesting. I think you're definitely making a fantastic point there, and it's something that we'll think about from this side for sure. Interesting. Really good suggestions. I mean, I've got to be careful because I think I might be out the door now. And no, mate. Look, really, really great talking to you. If you want to let the people listening to this know where they can find you, tell them about your podcast. Now's your chance.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. This has actually been a lot of fun. It's been really good.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. So you can find me on Instagram at NP Sports Cards 1. And my podcast is linked in my bio there, the Purple Patch. Haven't been as active recently. I've just been taking a break from end of uni. Just been really busy, really tired, a lot of partying and stuff. So just kind of still
Doesn't
recovering.
sound like university.
Yeah, it's still a bit in recovery mode, but the content's going to be coming back. So go check it out. And there's some of the older stuff there that you might find useful too.
Great. I look forward to checking that out as well. Once again, Niam Patel, thank you very much for coming on Soccer Cards and Chill. And we'll see you again next time. All the best. All right, so welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill. And that was my interview with Niam Patel, which was, as I said, in the first section of the show was rather interesting. It was great to get the perspective of an investor. And if you have any comments, any things that you want to add to what Niam said, or any disagreements, then do let us know in the comments section on YouTube. And also, if you are listening on a podcast app, then remember to give us a review, because that's incredibly helpful to us. So, Mark, we said that we would speak about working within a trading card company, because a lot of these collectors that are listening to this may be wondering what it's like to work for a trading card company. So, kind of what's like a day in the life like for you now?
Well, it's a bit like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. We've got sort of slides that go from one floor to the next. There's sort of like guys running around creating magic all the time. No, it's nothing like that at all. At the moment, because the industry's gone crazy, like every day at the moment is pretty exciting to be fair. I'm joking about it being a bit like Willy Wonka, but it is a lot about coming up with concepts, coming up with ideas, and basically just putting out some real cool stuff. I can't say exactly what we're putting out right now, but there is a lot in the pipeline. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to sort of start showing you the new bits and pieces that we're putting out, and it's really exciting. A lot of new concepts that are coming out at the moment, a few new licenses, which are really cool licenses. And just a lot of stuff to get excited about at the moment. It's time to sort of start putting out those trading cards, and yeah, we've got some really cool stuff in the pipeline for you guys to get excited about. It's but it's not that different as to when you were here 10 years ago, basically, and how things work and stuff like that.
So why don't you talk the guys through like what it's like for, so like, because I'm intrigued by that whole process of like the concept of a card to then eventually it becoming a card. What does that look like?
As the actual process takes quite a while to go from just the idea all the way through to the finished product. We always start off with a design meeting. So your first part of this is to try and get sort of concepts down on paper. So that's never a single person thing. It's always you bring in maybe 4 of us. So 2 graphic designers, a concept person like myself and Gwyneth as well. And we all go through the designs and what we want the card to sort of come up with. From doing that, ads, what's really interesting about that is that can change everything from the size of a collection to the concept of a collection to the checklist. Because whilst we're doing that, we're coming up with loads of ideas. We're all crazy about football. And I think that's why so many ideas come out in these meetings. Every morning I'll have an hour with Gwen on the phone or Zoom or face to face, where we'll go through different concepts, different ideas, things that we want to sort of maybe bring out. Half the stuff never sees the light of day, but then the other half does. And we come up with these great new concepts that come out. So your first part, definitely design meeting. From that, I'll go away and come up with a checklist. So that's sort of my role in this always. It has been since I've started. So I come up with a checklist for a collection, and that splits down into different subsets, how we're going to work with parallels, how we're going to work with the base set as well, what our numbering is. That gets put back through to Gwyneth, who goes through that and puts that through her own sort of algorithms. And then all of that gets passed on to the design team and the artworking team, who start to put everything together. So you've got the art workers, and their job is sort of going on, finding the best photographs, getting those cut, getting the text written up for it. So we've got editors and copywriters that will be doing the text. That all comes back in. The designers sit there and just make everything look perfect. And then it's on to sort of finishing the cards off and getting them into the printer. Nowadays, with so much new technology, it's an exciting process on that.
I do actually remember my first. I think I was must have been 2011. It might have been the 2011 Unique Collection. Like I was involved from start to finish on that one. And what's really cool is when you kind of see the cards coming off the production line, and you've been, I was at that point, I was selecting images for you. I think I was writing bios on the back of the cards, and then to kind of see these cards materialize in real life was a really cool feeling.
Actually getting them in your hands, Ads, is the exciting bit, isn't it? Like actually seeing it's all well and good seeing it on screen. And nowadays, I suppose we've done it for so long that we sort of know what they're going to come out like. But now, especially with the foiling that goes into it and stuff like that, it's they look really great in hands. I'm really put off by Andy Carroll in the background. I got to say, I'm talking about this the whole time, and now I can't think about anything other than the bust of Andy Carroll in the background. I'm sure
maybe we'll do a bust after, if we keep it going. Maybe one day we'll do a bust of Andy Carroll.
Is that a one of one Andy Carroll bust?
It's a one of one Andy Carroll bust. Yeah, the only one in the world.
That's class.
Just on that, like what? So on like different types of cards. So how do you like get? I don't know if we spoke about this in the last episode actually, but how do you like get like a piece of say, I don't know, like a jersey, Andy Carroll's jersey, into a card? Like, what does that kind of process look like?
Look, we'll set out before the collection. Normally, we'll have like our list of jerseys that we have for that, whether that be sort of in a world football, whether that be like Arsenal collections or Liverpool collections or Manchester City collections, etc. And we'll know already our list. So we'll then base our checklist around that list that we've already got. And then it's a case of sort of working out what it's going to look like on the card, what the size of the hole is, how much jersey we're going to have to use for it, how many patch pieces we need. And as I said last time, we'll just literally grid that out. So we'll take what we have of the jersey, we'll put a grid over the top, and we'll work how we'll use the best piece of everything into the card. So you can get the most sort of bits of badge and bits of number and stuff like that. The exciting stuff that everybody likes, basically. So yeah, it's just about getting it on there. And it's over the years, we've tried loads of different systems, but now it's so planned out. We know exactly, before the card is made or the concept of it comes out, we know exactly what's going in it and where, basically. If you've gone silent,
like
ads.
Excuse the pun. There's a unique.
Have we got?
I think you can't hear me.
But no, we've got a bit of a lag. I think I've got you. I think
you hear me or not?
Yeah, I've got you. We've got a little bit of a lag, but it's all right. Let's just make it more fun.
Would you say there's a unique? Excuse the pun. Would you say there's a unique look to Futera cards?
Yeah, I think so. I remember talking to a collector once and him saying that you've got Futera cards are like the Times New Roman of trading cards. And I knew what he meant by that. Like, that's a really sort of niche like way of explaining what our cards are, but they are sort of like the Times New Roman of cards. We don't push for the ultra modern style. Like we take inspiration from things such as like Game of Thrones. Like obsessed by Game of Thrones, we take inspiration from things like Game of Thrones, TV shows that we love like Black Sails and things like that. We take inspiration from those kind of design styles more than we take inspiration from sort of classic trading cards. And I think part of that is because we sort of like having fun with it. And it's the same as if you look at, say, you walk down a street, the street, and you see an Aston Martin. You know it's an Aston Martin before it's even come close to you, before you even see the badge. And the way that we always wanted Futera was that you know that it's a Futera card. It's our design style is so specific that you know that that's a Futera card. Whether it be a totally different design, this, that, you can still look at it and you'll see that there's elements that would still be Futera. And so I can sort of understand it's the Times New Roman of trading cards. I really liked that. I'm sure he was being nice, but I really liked it, and I've sort of kept that with me, basically.
Yeah, well, Times New Roman's a decent enough font. I mean, if he'd have said like one of the other ones that's a bit crazy or a bit funky,
if he'd said we were the Comic Sans,
Times New Roman.
If he'd said we were the Comic Sans of trading
cards,
cards,
there you go.
A, I wouldn't be bringing up that story, and B, I'd still probably be crying, to be honest. So we'll go with Times New Roman. But we're happy with it anyway. No, it's
No, I think there is. I think there is. I think there's a definite, like, kind of a unique look to Futera that you can definitely tell that our cards are our cards. I think.
Yeah, I think that's really important to us. But as I said, like, to sort of wrap it up on what it's like to create a collection takes a long time. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of parts that go into it, but that's sort of how it should be. If it was easy, then anyone could do it. We put a lot of effort into it. There's a lot of long hours. There's not a lot of sleep, as you can probably see from the bags under my eyes. But that's what comes when you love what you do. And we do genuinely love doing this. It's all I think about most days, except for the teamwear, which is the other which is the other side of things that we do. So our days now are sort of taken up with not only trading cards, but with a whole team for teamwear as well. So it's there's a bit of a jump around for me, but no, it's really exciting. And I think the boom sort of adds to that. The excitement of making trading cards now is really the things that I've loved for so many years, and these things that we create. And there's been years and years of sort of design work and creation to it. The best thing about the boom is that it's getting seen by a much bigger audience. And so it's not just now sort of like within our little bubble, within our niche. Now it is literally sort of going out to the world. And I love that. That's really exciting for me. And I love the feedback that we get, constructive criticism, people that love it, fans, etc. It's lovely to see. Really cool every single day at the moment.
It is. All right, Mark. I think that wraps. I know. Let's before we have any more technical issues, let's wrap this up now. So, thanks for listening to Soccer Cards and Chill. Remember to give us a review if you can. Remember to like, subscribe, share, do all the things that you normally do with the content that you watch. And remember to leave a comment, because we will we'll speak about them on the next show. So Mark, thanks a lot. Right, okay, thanks to Niam Patel as well, and we'll see you again next time on the show.
Really looking forward to it. See you next week.